Do you want to learn how to earn commissions of up to 20% by laundering millions of foreign dollars?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's email security solutions keep email phishing attacks like this from entering your business network and any valuable data from leaking out. Reclaim your network like 150,000 other businesses have. To learn more about stopping email-borne threats, visit barracuda.com/email.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oh, it's the Herd on ESPN Radio. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, thanks for making us part of your day. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway Fresh Steak Hotline and simulcast on ESPNU. Great show today on a Wednesday. Soccer's imploding. The Cavs are not, despite injuries. You know, it's easier when you have comparisons in life, right? Because it's easier to contextualize. Like that is like that. If you're starting a business, well, what do you want the business to be? Well, sort of like that business, but we'll be a little edgier. Like this business, but we'll be a little more mainstream. And when you start a business, to contextualize it, you compare it to other businesses. Well, we'd like to be a Google startup engine, but with certain limitations there, better here, better there. It's the same thing we do with sports. And sometimes you can really compare people. I mean, Tom Brady and Joe Montana are very similar. Both have all-time legendary coaches. Both were clutch, precise, and fairly immobile. John Elway and Andrew Luck have a lot in common. Big, strong, Stanford, mobile, high IQ franchise carrier. But not everybody has somebody that's just like them. They don't. Not everybody has a doppelganger. And they don't. I mean, when Magic arrived, I'd never seen a 6'8.5" point guard. Charles Barkley broke into the league. He was 6'5" and could dominate inside. MJ Kobe, yes, easy comparison. D. Rose Iverson, you can see the similarities. But with LeBron James, like, I'm just done comparing him. He's like Frankenstar. 20 of that, 30 of that, some Magic, some Pippen, some this, some Barkley, some... He doesn't really compare to anything physically. He's much bigger and stronger than Magic or Michael. He can pass like Magic, defend like Michael Jordan, except stronger and bigger. He's an executive off the floor, a coach on it, and adds 5 or 6 different dimensions as a player. He's got holes in his game. Magic, Michael, LeBron, none of them were great three-point shooters. Larry Bird was. But the two things I can say about LeBron, and I think you can just drop the mic, is he takes C-plus players and makes them B-plus players. Tristan Thompson on a lot of teams is forgettable. He almost looks like a max player at times. Think Dellavedova looks this good if he's on Toronto? Minnesota? He takes C-plus guys. Cleveland won 60 games. He left. They were the league's worst team. Miami was in the NBA Finals 4 straight years. He leaves. They win in the 30s. He takes C-plus and makes it A- and B+. And the second thing is he makes my all-time starting 5. And I don't even think it's arguable. Magic's the point, Michael's the 2, LeBron's the 3, Bird or Duncan the 4, and I'll put Kareem as the center. I mean, Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon started talking about this yesterday, and I sort of agreed with both simultaneously.
I think he's the greatest player who ever lived. I really do. Because he can play every position on the court. He can defend every position on the court. He passes unlike any scorer before him at that size.
What LeBron is doing this playoff series with no Kevin Love, with part-time Kyrie Irving, this is the most impressive LeBron has been. Anybody can win with Dwayne Wade. What LeBron is doing now is unreal.
It is. You take this roster, you put it in Toronto without LeBron, how many games are they winning? And they're not winning the East, they're destroying it. The games aren't even competitive. So we know the East is weak. I think it's funny. that everybody now is just, I predicted Golden State would beat Houston either in a sweep or 5, and I think they'll wrap it up. But this idea that Golden State is just going to flush through Cleveland and it won't be competitive, slow down a little bit. If you put both these rosters together and you had to draft the 10 best players, you take LeBron 1, Curry 2, and Kyrie Irving, if he's healthy, 3. And you'd also take Mozgov and Tristan Thompson in the top 10. I think it's a very compelling final. Golden State has a better coach. That matters. Golden State is deeper. That matters. And Golden State is healthier. That really matters. So I would take Golden State. But I don't even know what to compare LeBron to. From his executive work off the court, his coaching and playing on it, to his durability, to his viability, he's Frankenstar. He's a bunch of different stuff, and like magic, when he broke into this league, I can't just label him and compare him. We've got an MJ comparison. It's Kobe, and he's not quite MJ. We got that one. That one's not LeBron. That's Kobe. Well, if you've not heard today, criminal investigations are happening right now with FIFA, the governing body of soccer in the world. FIFA, and I do like soccer, many American fans don't, but increasingly young people especially do. FIFA's been the mob boss who didn't get popped, but we all knew he wasn't a plumber. Remember that with John Gotti in the 80s and 90s? I'm a plumber in the Queens. Really? $4,000 Italian suits and $50,000 annual fireworks shows, and you're a plumber. Well, the PVC business must be humming right along there, Mr. Plumber. 25 years. I'm just a plumber in Queens. Interesting. But this is what happens when you have the world involved in sports. The Olympics end up in Sochi, and the World Cup ends up in the summer in Qatar, where it's 127 degrees. Yeah, I'm sure those were the best options. This is John Gotti of the 80s and 90s. We knew he wasn't a plumber, and we knew soccer's not on the up and up. It's about time. Sepp Blatter, so far, Sepp Blatter, the guy running it, has not been fingerprinted. But between the investigations of the United States and Switzerland, I think eventually he will be. Yeah, believe me, I just sell Delta faucets. They run about $20,000 a pop, apparently. It's the PVC has never been hotter. It's like Google. I mean, come on. You talk about something everybody's known in soccer and out of it for the last 30 years. They've had this. This is basically, it comes down to there's these marketing companies, and there's accusations now all over the globe that they paid FIFA to get contracts. It happened before. A marketing firm in Switzerland did this years ago with FIFA. Sepp Blatter was not the president of FIFA at the time, but he was an underling. So here you go. That's what we have. Jeremy Schaap, next hour, we'll talk about that. Good stuff today. Great to have you in. I think the final's going to be pretty interesting. And I do think Golden State will get to it. And I do think Cleveland is in it. And they're better than people think. This idea that it's just going to be Golden State sweeping through them, I do not buy that. I think it's a very compelling final. I think it all hinges on Kyrie Irving's health. I think they need a week off. And if I can get 4 really good games out of him, then I think they've got a shot to extend it to 6 or 7 games. I'll take Golden State, but I think they can make it really compelling.
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Bobcats, Suns, Clippers, Bucks. Jared Dudley, who will go into broadcasting. He doesn't know it yet when he finishes his career. All right, so we were talking about, these NBA playoffs. I think Cleveland, actually, if Kyrie Irving was healthy, can give Golden State, if they win, a very interesting series. I'd take Golden State because they're deeper and healthier. But as a guy who plays in this league and you've faced both those teams, I think Cleveland can go at times toe-to-toe with Golden State if they got to the finals. Do you?
I do. I picked Golden State to win before the playoffs started. I just thought overall they were the best team. They had the best depth. LeBron factor, I would just say, with the pick and rolls, at how his range defensively, how he can get from side to side. And Kevin Love's injury actually, as crazy as it sounds, might help them because they're way better defensively.
Yes, they're better defensively without Kevin.
Right. And then offensively, what it basically means, they don't have another spacer, but it just makes LeBron and Kyrie more aggressive. And I don't know if that makes you worse. If anything, it makes you better. Less shots for Love. And Tristan Thompson's giving you extra possessions. Even though Kevin Love is his big rebounder, Tristan Thompson's a better rebounder. He goes and gets the ball. It doesn't come to him. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, LeBron's the underdog, which is very rare for him.
Yeah. Joining us in the herd on ESPN Radio. Jared, when you look, we've talked about LeBron, and I call him Frankenstar.
Right.
He's a little bit of about 10 all-time great players, so I don't want to get into comparisons. I want you to take my audience. Okay. You've been on the floor. You've guarded a James Harden. You've had to be on the floor with LeBron. What is the essence of him? What does he do to the game and the spacing that my audience would never know because they've never been on the floor with him?
Well, I think it's very rare when the best player on the floor is the smartest player on the floor. And when I say that is he knows he picks and chooses spots. Regular season, LeBron for the most part, he coasts. He knows he picks and chooses times. He knows he don't lose certain games. I think it's when we played him, first 2.5, 3 quarters, he's just setting everybody up. Let's look at JR some shots. Shumpert, let's get you going. Mozgov, he'll get a couple fast breaks. He'll just outrun everyone and get a couple dunks. And then by that middle of the third, when he comes back in from his rest, it's go time for him. He attacks the basket. He's getting to the free throw line. If he hit 1 or 2 threes and he gets it going, and you know how his personality is, it's almost unstoppable. He knows he can't do it alone. He tried to do that early on in his career, and he didn't have the talent-wise. Now LeBron, he thinks the game defensively. He tries to hide himself sometimes so he can pick and choose his spots. But offensively, man, there's nothing this guy can't do now.
You've been in this league now 6-7 years. You know the league.
8 years. Don't say that. Come on, no.
Oh, sorry about that. Cheated you a year. Cheated you on your pension.
Yes.
I would say this. Somebody just asked me, MJ or LeBron, who would you start a franchise with? And I said LeBron because he's a giver. And everybody wants to play with LeBron. Not everybody wanted to play with, Kobe.
Right.
Tell me, Kobe and Michael are very similar. They're unbelievable. But if you ask players around the league, what is the take on Kobe?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now, the way Kobe is, especially getting hurt and kind of not, even Jordan, if you see Jordan when he played with the Wizards, he started toning it down a little bit. He knew he didn't have it. Kobe's the opposite. He wants to show everyone so much. I mean, I remember seeing Kobe. I think it was like 70 games in, he was outshot the whole Laker team by like 100 shots. Like, come on now, Kobe. We love you, Kobe, but come on. It's like, it's now time to start giving up. I think most guys don't want to play with Kobe. I mean, for the most part, he's such a superstar, and he's such like a huge personality and a killer that, I mean.
He doesn't have that throttle to say it's time to step back.
And that's tough for guys, and for him obviously being one of the greats. And also, like, I mean, when he wants to, the worst thing about it is he can. Remember, Kobe gets in this thing where he doesn't pass and then he overpasses and he's trying to get triple doubles every night. Like, so we know you have it. It's just not something he wants to do, and that's why I think that it'll be a while for the Lakers to get good, because no stars. I mean, Love, I'll be surprised. Even people say Love, I'd be surprised Love want to go there.
Let's ask you about Kevin Love. Kevin Love, the knock on him is he's aloof. Mm-hmm. He doesn't relate to everybody. He's kind of a stat monster.
Yes.
If he left Cleveland, wouldn't it ultimately validate his critics that you're basically just into getting money and points? I think it would be a bad look for him to leave.
Bad PR move.
What would players think?
Yeah, I mean, players already, as the players, we already know. I mean, we know that Kevin Love, I mean, his numbers are deflated to a fault. We understand when you play on a bad team and getting your guys. I mean, you heard J.J. Burrow make certain comments about it. I would say this: if you leave LeBron, there's something wrong. And I'm not saying even LeBron is the most unselfish superstar we have. You see they're winning. You're in the Eastern Conference. You're going to turn down an extra $25 million to go to L.A. because of the sun. I mean, we all love the sun, but you can buy some sun over there, an indoor house over there, and have how much sun you want. I mean, at the end of the day, it would validate it. I mean, you're leaving a winner. Cleveland has the best facilities. I mean, you can go on how good it is there. I can understand you might want your own identity, but to be honest with you, man, he's got to prove, hey, win 1 or 2 and then opt out.
Okay, Rockets Warriors tonight. I think Golden State wraps it up. I get an unfair. Look at Stanzik. You're just laughing at me. My staff just laughs because they know the question's coming. James Harden is Dominique. He's Carmelo to me. I'm not denying he's a Hall of Fame talent. He's just not a guy I'm building the franchise around, so I refuse to go to Twitter when he drops 45. props to you. It's like he's not my guy. How do players view James Harden?
I would say players have utmost respect for James Harden. For one, he's improved every year. And also, for me, as a shooter, he gets his shooters involved. Even though he shoots the ball a lot, he's attacking. He looks for Terry and Brewer and to fault Josh Smith where he wants to jack those threes. I know everyone's cringes at home. But overall, I mean, defensively where he has to make his huge jump. Yeah, and it's bad at times. And you understand that. And I think that the older he gets, you're going to understand, like, hey, he was awful last year. He went from awful to bad. I mean, so
he's a bad defender. But he's not awful.
He's not awful anymore. I would say that because people got on him so bad with that. I do think that, he knows he's the man offensively. He has to buy in. And until he does that and until the accountability is there, you look at Houston, they want to outrun and gun. There's no one like, hey, except for Beverly and occasionally Dwight Howard, there's no really accountability, I believe.
Defensively,
their whole thing is, the analytics, shoot threes, threes and twos.
Okay, most underrated player in the NBA.
Most underrated
Jared
player.
Dudley.
I'm going to go with Zach Randolph.
I covered Zach.
Zach's an animal. I mean, come on.
He's got a big butt. He's hard to defend. He does.
20-10 career.
How about this? What if I say most overrated?
Most overrated? I would say Carmelo. Carmelo. I would say Carmelo. The reason why I say Carmelo is because Carmelo is viewed as a top 5 player.
Oh, come on.
He's viewed in the NBA as a top 5, and I would say
boys. God, who says that?
You know what? But think about Carmelo. He has the talent. To be able to facilitate. The triangle should fit him where he's got to make guys better, and defensively, he's got to take take the next level up. But Carmelo, until he's got to get out. He's got to get out these first, second. He's got to get the team to the playoffs. LeBron with that roster, is that it is? LeBron would have gotten to the playoffs. They would have been at least the 8th seed.
Yes.
And he's not LeBron. He doesn't have to be. Well, he's got to,
got to close the gap a little.
Yes, he does.
You want to be considered a top 5 player. Got to close the gap a little. What's your brother? Shout out to your brother in San Diego.
Milan Dudley is his favorite show here. He loves Colin. He watches the show more than any other show here on ESPN.
Well, he's smart.
Smart guy.
Runs the family. Good seeing you, bud,
You too, man. Thank you.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Texans and J.J. Watt, they'll be on Hard Knocks. Yeah. Last few teams to be on Hard Knocks for the Dolphins, Jets, Bengals, Falcons. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of losers to me. I don't know. I don't see the Patriots on that thing. Oh, you hate Houston teams. I'm over that. Through the years, you try to learn, right? You want to get smarter. You want to get better. And I got to be honest. A player I'm going to criticize now has actually made me a better evaluator of talent. Because I was initially hypnotized by Colin Kaepernick's arm speed and size. But now he's somebody who taught me a lesson. That despite having a great arm, great speed, and great size, maturity is crucial at quarterback. I look at quarterbacks now differently because of Colin Kaepernick. Number 1, accuracy. Number 2, maturity. You can be slow, you can be this, you can be that. Got to be accurate. Got to put the ball in a nice spot, and you got to be a grown-up. It's a big boy league. Want to be on Instagram? Knock yourself out. Want to be narcissistic? Look at my hats, look at my cars. Knock yourself out. Go be a wide receiver. This is a big boy job. Colin Kaepernick had to apologize, Niners quarterback, and delete a post about Houston flooding. He trivialized the deaths in Houston and the Texas and Oklahoma areas. Put hashtag #7 storms coming and pictures of flooded out cars and cities. Shortly thereafter, because the Niners had to say, you're an idiot, he deleted it, and 2 minutes later, he was on Instagram sending a bare-chested pic of himself 2 minutes later, storms are coming, hashtag. He's a kid, he's not an adult. Okay? He's really talented, but I never bought into Manziel, Vince Young, Tim Tebow, RG3, Brady Quinn as stars. I was blinded by Kaepernick. His natural gifts, his head coach, his defense, but he's just not mature enough. And all the great quarterbacks were men, and they were men early. It's not like they became men. They were men when they came into the league. Brady was a grown-up. Aikman, Steve Young, Marino, Elway. Kaepernick put a picture of floods, killing people, human suffering, natural disaster. Look at me. He's a kid. I get this a lot from young people. Colin, he's got time to grow up. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. I'm 50. I've seen it my entire life. A dope at 22 is a dope at 32. It's just the way it works. My dad used to run a business, and I remember him, my sister, he got into a discussion once with my sister and one of her friends, and he said, listen, this is the way it works. In order for people to buy the glasses that I sell as an optometrist, I have to check their credit. And he goes, my dad said, I've been doing this for 50 years. People with bad credit at 28 have bad credit at 38, have bad credit at 48, overwhelmingly. Probably some exceptions, but you either have your act together, you're either responsible, or you're not. And most people who at 24 are immature, 25 are immature, at 26 are immature at 36. And Brady had his act together when he broke into this league. Kaepernick's been in it 5 years. He's still doing dumb stuff, overly narcissistic, infatuated with himself and his stuff and his lids and his shoes and his cars and tats. That's who he is. He's a boy. Now, he's 6'5", 235, but that's what he is. Cap on sideways, doesn't have any self-awareness. You know, I've said this. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you take a selfie without your shirt on in your bathroom, I don't really need to know you. You've told me everything I need to know. I mean, unless you're like 13, I mean, you kind of told me everything. So he fooled me. I'd be the first. I was just the gifts, the wins, the coach, the defense. He was 6'5", and he was faster than defensive players. And he threw a rocket. And, you know, he fooled me. I bought in. He stayed healthy. He took shots. I thought he was the next Big Ben. I really did. I thought he was the next Big Ben. But in the end, he's just a kid. Once a kid, always a kid. Mike, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin, I totally agree with you on this with Kaepernick. You look at somebody like Luck came into the league as a man. Everybody knew it. I mean, made him the first pick in the draft. And it really kind of comes down to, sometimes, I should say, it comes down to it's a gift. It's an issue of character versus gifting. And Kaepernick, everybody thought he had the gifting. Clearly, he doesn't have the character. You get somebody like Luck or a lot of the other guys you named, Brady, Manning, et cetera. They have the gifting and the character. So, you know, I think you hit the nail on the head with this, but you weren't the only one blindsided. A lot of people thought Kaepernick. I would be curious how many fantasy football leagues he was drafted in, people thinking he was really going to produce, and he really just didn't.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because Michael Vick, from the very beginning, the running quarterback, I said with Michael Vick, he's at times spectacular, but he's tiny, and he really never learned how to sit in the pocket and throw a ball. You could see very early in Mike's career, he could be spectacular, but quarterbacks are not, it's really not that difficult to figure out. I mean, the first thing I look at is, can you throw the ball and it ends up where you want to throw it? And by the way, that is not a specialty for some quarterbacks. Now, not everybody can be Joe Montana and Brady and Elway, but a lot of guys just don't throw an effortless, great ball. Vince Young just didn't throw a good football. So the first thing I look at, can you make the throws? The second thing now is, are you a grown-up? Like I called Johnny Manziel. I said he's going to be an utter disaster. He doesn't throw a great ball. He's not unless he's on platform and the guy's open. He doesn't throw a great football, and he's not very mature. So it's not that difficult. Now, we can miss on people. I mean, Andrew Luck, his sophomore year, I went on the air and said he's going to be the best quarterback in the league in the last 15 years. He's absurd. If I can see it, how many coaches can see it? It doesn't take that much to figure it out. I could spot Matt Ryan in college. I'm like, he's going to be an effective quarterback. But then you get to the fringes. Like, I've never bought into Tannehill. I think Tannehill's fine. He's a big mobile body. And now in that division with pass rushes, he's got some value. Tannehill's never going to be great. He's never going to be transcendent. But one of the things that people, you have to forgive people. But in my life, something I can absolutely say is definitively true is I understand kids make mistakes. We all make them. But kind of there's a line of demarcation about 24, 25. If you don't have it together by then, that's who you are. I'll give you a screw up at 17 or at 21. You're in college. You pull the fire alarm in your dorm. You're kind of an idiot. You're drinking too much. It's stupid. I'll give you that stuff. But you start to get to 23, 24, 25, 26. That's now who you are. Brain fully developed. It's just kind of who you are. Russell Wilson broke into this league and from day one was a grown-up. Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, they're just grown-ups. There's no BS. They show up early. They do the practice. They get their teammates involved. It's like in the NBA. Very rarely does a guy come into the NBA and then play himself into becoming a star. Even out of high school, you knew Kevin Garnett year 2, you're like, oh, this kid's going to be really good. Kobe Bryant year 2, you're like, oh, watch out, he has his moment. Very rarely, like 4 years into the league, you're like, yeah, he's okay. Year 6, you're like, he's a superstar. It's the same with maturity. If a guy doesn't have it by like 24, he's kind of a screw-up. And you can probably find an exception, but it's an exception which proves the rule. And I don't think he has it. And I also think he still can't figure out the nuance of the position. Everything's a 98-mile-an-hour screamer. Like, he doesn't have any nuance. It's like he doesn't ever say, time for a change-up. Everything, a screen pass, he's throwing a rope out of the flat. Daryl, go ahead, bud, fire away.
Hey, Colin, great show. We were just talking about this the other day with a buddy of mine. I do some mentoring, and one of the young ladies in my mentoring session said, hey, I'm only 28. And I said, are you kidding? I mean, like, you're old to a 15-year-old right now. So, these kids, they don't grow up, and by 28, 29, they still think they're young, and their future is well ahead of them. And I said, half of us behind you at this point.
I mean, Daryl, do you hire people for a living?
Yes.
Yeah, so you hire people for a living. And do you see the trend that I see that by kind of like 23, 24, you can kind of see who a person is. I mean, they may quit smoking but by 23, 24, you kind of know what somebody brings to the table.
Exactly.
They do. I mean, I've had to hire people. You kind of know. And if they can't grow up at 25, I mean, yesterday we had a bunch of kids. We had like 9 kids that came into my studio during a commercial break. And you could look around that room, doctors and lawyers, Princeton, this and that. I mean, these kids were buttoned up, respectful. I mean, eye contact. You're like, they got good dads. They got their act together. They got good moms. I mean, these kids, you were looking at these kids. Not all of them are going to be superstars, but they were like 18-year-old kids. And they were in here and you're like, oh, they all know what they're doing. You're going to find those kids in 20 years, and they're going to be formidable people in society. I don't know what they were doing hanging out with Tim Hasselbeck. That was the only regrettable decision they made all day.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Jeremy Schaap, investigative reporter for ESPN, joining us. So Swiss federal prosecutors opened criminal proceedings today related to the awarding of the 2018-2022 World Cup hours after 7 FIFA officials were among 14 people indicted in a separate corruption probe. Jeremy, explain basically what happened this morning.
We knew there was a federal investigation taking place. We didn't know exactly what it was about. The supposition on the part of many that it was related to the very flawed bidding process for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. What happened today, these arrests are not about that. They're about tournaments that took place in the Americas and events that took place in the Americas. But clearly, there's an interest in what happened with the widespread allegations of bribery involving 2018 and 2022.
Now, we know there's an election Friday, and the timing is certainly interesting. Is this perhaps by the Swiss and the United States, which have separate investigations, perhaps to sort of blow up the election, delay it to get ultimately Sepp Blatter out?
Well, it would certainly be natural to take that away from what has happened here. When I was speaking to some people about the possibility that there might be movement before the election, they said, well, maybe the Department of Justice doesn't want to be seen as politicizing the process here. But clearly, by doing this 48 hours before the election, Sepp Blatter's up for a 5th term. He's expected to be reelected handily. Law enforcement did insert itself here into the process. That doesn't mean that they're going to be able to affect any kind of change in the outcome. Far from it. Sepp Blatter wasn't indicted. He wasn't named in any of the Department of Justice documentation. He is going to run on Friday as planned and, in all likelihood, win. There is a movement afoot on the part of the European Confederation, UEFA, to delay the vote, but it's unlikely, I think, that will succeed.
I'll be the cynic, the American, the domestic cynic, that soccer now, all the measurables show it's sticking. It's working. It is now outpacing NFL in video sales, FIFA. It is now more... Yes, it's on fire. We see the TV radio ratings. The United States sees Qatar as a vulnerable situation where the world is outraged. For many things, almost a slavery-level corruption on the building of the infrastructure. And that this is an opportunity, a weakness globally, to get those 2022 World Cup games over to the States here.
FIFA says that won't happen. Sepp Blatter says that won't happen. He has said in not so many words, but close to these words, over my dead body will the 2022 World Cup take place anywhere other than Qatar. And certainly, if he is not under indictment, if he is not arrested, if he is reelected as we expect on Friday, it's going to be very difficult to change the location of that World Cup. It's going to be difficult anyway. Now FIFA has given a lot of lip service to looking into this matter and hired Michael Garcia, a well-respected prosecutor from the United States, formerly the head of the Southern District Office, U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. He spent years and millions investigating. He submitted his report last fall. FIFA wouldn't publish it. They released instead a summary that Garcia himself said distorted his findings. So their message has been nothing to see here, move along. Whatever corruption took place with those votes for Russia and Qatar did not rise to a level that we are going to reassess the decisions to award the cups to those countries respectively. I still think 2022 will take place in Qatar, barring an extraordinary series of events that I can't foresee.
Two of Blatter's underlings, high-ranking officials, got busted, potentially squealers. I mean, this is how corrupt, powerful juggernauts are taken down. The second, third, fourth in command are arrested, not the patriarch, and they talk. Is that a possibility?
I think anything is possible at this point, Colin, but remember, Chuck Blazer, who was one of the most powerful people in FIFA for a long time, has been cooperating for years with the federal authorities. He wore a wire, apparently. That was first reported in the New York Daily News.
For the Swiss investigation or the United States?
For the federal investigation in the U.S.
Okay.
Although they've been cooperating, these authorities with
They're not joint, but they've been cooperating.
That's our understanding. So they've already penetrated to the very upper reaches of FIFA. When you talk about Jack Warner and Chuck Blazer. Now, Jack Warner didn't turn state's evidence, but he has two sons who have already pleaded guilty. He was Jeff Webb's predecessor. Jeff Webb, one of those arrested. Predecessor is the head of CONCACAF, the region, of course, in which the United States plays soccer. So what you have to remember, I think, about Sepp Blatter is he's been there for 40 years. There have been many controversies before. He has managed to keep his hands clean, at least to the level that he hasn't been found personally criminally liable for anything. And I've talked to a lot of people about Sepp Blatter, especially over the last 6 months. Even his most ardent critics think he is too smart to have taken a bribe himself or a kickback himself. And they think that he is smart enough that he would have probably inoculated himself from anyone around him who was doing something like that. It doesn't mean that there aren't ways that he can be reached, that he can't be found criminally liable.
Sure.
But it's a high standard.
Well, it is a sport that I have fallen in love with, but there is a dark side sometimes to global sports, be it the Olympics or FIFA. And today's a dark day, but maybe it gets us to a better place. Jeremy Schaap, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Colin.
By the way, the U.S. Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, just addressed the media a little bit ago. She said there's $110 million in bribes just related to the 2016 Copa America in the USA alone. So it's, you get global sports and different cultures and different governments. And, I mean, it's Putin and the Sochi Olympics. I mean, how in the world did they end up in that dank place? Well, that was awful. How did the Olympics end up in Nagano, Japan, some industrial district in Japan? I mean, really? You don't think there's payoffs? The World Cup, not to be the ugly American, but we're just built for it. You could put the World Cup today in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. They wouldn't have to build another stadium. They wouldn't have to. If you have two major stadiums in a small stadium, you can work things out. I mean, like in Los Angeles, you'd have the Coliseum 2 games a day. You'd have the Rose Bowl 2 games a day. And then go to Carson or somewhere else and have, a couple small, when the Ivory Coast is not bringing in thousands and thousands of people. But in America, we're just built for this stuff. Our infrastructure with stadiums and athletics collegiately at this level, Texas. You go to Dallas or Houston, you have stadiums everywhere. Los Angeles right now could host the World Cup. You've got 2 major 90,000 more seat stadiums. Put 2 or 3 games a day. One at 9 in the morning, one at 1:30, and one at 8. Boom, there you go. 6 games a day, 2 stadiums. Brazil, in fact, overbuilt for the World Cup. They really did. They overbuilt. They were trying to impress the world. They built too many stadiums too far apart. That's the problem with the Olympics. You have to build this infrastructure like Greece, and you never use the venues again. But in the World Cup, you have 2 major stadiums, and then a 3rd smaller stadium. Well, a lot of places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, Fort Worth, Southern California, if you had to, go down to Qualcomm in San Diego or whatever stadium you have, they can have 2 games a day. But these Olympics, they often create ghost towns after they leave most of these cities. I mean, go look at the pictures of Greece. It's disturbing. Cities are left in shambles. All these stadiums you paid for, never used again. World Cup's not that way. That's why we should be absolutely involved in the World Cup, and we should host them regularly. It's our infrastructure because of our collegiate athletic infrastructure. We're built for this stuff. Dallas, Fort Worth, Anaheim, Los Angeles, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando areas, built for it.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
throw to the plate, safe at the plate,
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Hey, before we get started, I've got some massive news here. It's only going to take 30 seconds. But this is massive news that needs to be covered, and nobody at this network understands the gravitas of the announcement today that Robert Rodriguez has come on board to co-write and direct a live-action feature adaptation of the cartoon Johnny Quest for Warner Brothers. The series lasted only 2 years, but Johnny Quest became a cult following. The greatest cartoon ever made. There is no second place. The giant spider with a camera for an eye is the greatest cartoon episode ever. Johnny Quest will be made, adapted into movie form, and I'll be there.
You have been a bad bandito, and you know it.
I love that cartoon.
And I thought you were a nice guy.
2 things my childhood could not live without. Quisp cereal and Johnny Quest.
Nerd alert!
Yeah, whatevs. I also like Pac-Man and asteroids, but let's not get into it. So, during the regular season, I was getting a lot of hate mail. What's new? From Atlanta. ATL, they call it. Colin! You see what we're doing down here? We're passing the ball. We're sharing. The ball movement is the future of the NBA. Oh, really? Really? I think the future of the NBA is LeBron and Steph Curry, but you go ahead. Colin, you see our spacing? Everybody shares. That's great in the regular season. But in the playoffs, sneakiness, clever, sharing, yeah, that takes a backseat to talent. See, what happens in the regular season, you fly into town, the other team's just off a game, they're not well rested, they can't look at much tape. You come in, you got some depth, you're sharing the ball, good mojo, nice emotion, you win by 10, leave town. But the playoffs are different. Everybody is generally equally rested. And you play the same team 7 times. So what does that mean? You're not tricking anybody. After you play that 7th or 8th game at the Y against the team, you kind of figure out what a team does well and what they don't do well. That backdoor play, it worked like the first 2 games. It doesn't by the 3rd and the 4th. And what happens is the best players win the game. This happened to the Phoenix Suns 7 and 8 years ago. They were built for the regular season, but they had this one major flaw. They couldn't defend the interior. And when you go to the playoffs and you play the same team over and over, you cannot have a major flaw. Because in the NBA, you'll figure that major flaw out by like game 2. And then game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'll keep burrowing in on that major flaw. And what happens with Atlanta, they have a major flaw. Nobody to guard LeBron James. And so LeBron controlled every possession of that series that he wanted to. Last year, San Antonio had Kawhi Leonard. Could at least stabilize their defense against LeBron. But you find when you get up to a playoff series, if a team has a real weakness, no matter how fun they are, no matter how much they share the ball, if they have a major weakness, a good team will just burrow in on it. That Phoenix Suns team was great in the regular season because you didn't get to prepare for a week. They'd come in, a bunch of guys who could shoot Jays all over the floor, run and gun, wear you out, 3rd quarter late, you're exhausted. But then you're playing them 4, 5, 6, 7 times. They can't defend Tim Duncan. They go to him constantly. So Atlanta's a team built for the regular season. I said this about the Indiana Pacers. They were built for the regular season. They were deep. They were big. They were inartistic. They dominate the glass. Didn't need to have 2 or 3 great scores. But once you got into the playoffs, you put LeBron on Paul George and force other guys to score. They didn't have a second, third option. So Atlanta, that's why you'll see certain people in Hollywood that are built to last. Frank Sinatra could sing, could dance, he could act. Jamie Foxx can sing, can dance, can laugh, can be funny, can do dramatic. Justin Timberlake, sing, dance, act, funny, dramatic. Shia LaBeouf, okay? So when you have the big hole, eventually it will be discovered. And Atlanta really has no elite defender. They can't figure out a way to play LeBron. By the way, Chicago's got Jimmy Butler. When healthy, they can play with him. Kawhi Leonard could guard him. San Antonio can play with him. I think Draymond Green will probably try to do something Golden State. They can play with him. Atlanta didn't have anybody. So LeBron just did whatever he wanted to do. If he wanted to pass and distribute, he did that. If he wanted to score, he did that. Seth, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Seth, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Colin? Love the show. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I just wanted to give you some credit, man. I've been watching the Hawks this whole series, and you said a couple weeks ago that the Hawks just do not have big-time shot makers. They don't have anyone that they can rely on to take over a game late, and that's what ended up leading them to getting eliminated. Just they had no LeBron, they had no stars that have been there with experience or anything like that. So that's just what I think happened. You hit it right on the head.
You know, Seth, you got to have great players to win titles. That's just the way it works. There's very few exceptions. The Dallas Mavericks had Dirk Nowitzki and a bunch of good guys, but Dirk was unstoppable at times in that series. You have to generally have 2 to 3. They made an exception with one great player and a really great coach. But, it is kind of similar. You know, it's like winning an election. You got to start with money. If you don't have any money, you're not winning a federal election. So it's like in the NBA generally, you got to have a star player. Because these games come down to a series of 8 or 9 possessions at the end of games. I've got LeBron, you've got Al Horford. Okay, what do you want to do with it? Come on. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. Seth Curry. I got him. Now, by the way, Houston does have James Harden. He can score a lot. He may burn you on the defensive end, but in the last 6 or 7 possessions, when Houston's close late, they're tough. They're tough late if they're close because they can dump it into Dwight Howard, who shoots over 50, dunking, and James Harden gets fouled a lot. That's why you try to extend the lead on Houston. You don't want a back and forth game with Houston late because James can beat you. But if you don't have a star scorer generally, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. So Atlanta was just a team that that kind of team does not win the championship. I'll tell you, I don't know if anybody in the East, you'd have to make a profound move. Like Washington would have to get Kevin Durant. And I don't think he's going to go there. I think he'd go west. But my belief is unless somebody in the East makes a seismic move in free agency, Cleveland is going to the finals for the next half decade. Tristan Thompson's young. Kyrie's young. Mozgov's got a lot of years. LeBron's got 5 good ones left. Iman Shumpert's fairly young. They've got young players. So, I look around and I look at that East. You could just pencil in LeBron for the next 5 years in the finals. In the West, Golden State's going to have real challenges. I mean, there's going to be real teams, there's real organizations, and real stars. Houston has actually got a really good roster.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Now, Tom Penn came on earlier. He doesn't think the Cleveland Cavaliers can hang with the Warriors, and I think if Kyrie's healthy, it's a pretty entertaining series, although I take Golden State because they're healthier and deeper. Here's Tom Penn earlier in the show.
I see Golden State as a pretty significant favorite. With LeBron, you always have certainly that factor, and he can win everything on his own. But Golden State is just so deep, Colin. They just come at you incessantly, especially at home. You just cannot score with them. I don't think the Cavs can score enough. They don't have enough options.
Okay, so let's put some NBA music in. We'll go to 8 players each. I don't care. By the time you get to your 9th and 10th player, they're not going to decide the series. So we each get 8 players. We get both the rosters. We can pick anybody from the rosters. Now, it's my show, so I get first pick. I'm going to take LeBron James. Who's your next?
Steph Curry. Let's go.
I'll take Kyrie Irving. Who will you take? And now you better think very long and hard about this. So I got LeBron. You have Steph. I have Kyrie Irving. Who is your number?
Yeah, man.
Oh, I thought you loved that other guy you told me today. So
no, I know. I just don't know who you're going to take next. I really want to take someone. I'm going to take Klay Thompson. Let's go.
Which allows me to take Draymond Green, so you don't have a guy to guard. You don't have a guy now to guard LeBron James. Advantage, Herd team. So I got LeBron, Kyrie, Draymond Green. Who are you going? Who's going 6th?
I'll take Harrison Barnes.
Okay, I'll take Mozgov, rim protector. 8th pick.
I'll take Bogut.
Okay, this gets interesting. I'll take Tristan Thompson. 10th pick.
Okay, I'll take Sean Livingston.
That's interesting. He's played very well. I'm going to go J.R. Smith. You notice I'm taking most of my team, the cohesiveness. Very good.
I'll take Andre Iguodala.
You better get... He's going to be guarding LeBron. Good luck with that. All right, hold on. I don't have a backup point. I was going to take that Festus guy. He's a big. Oh, I'm going to take Dellavedova. Yeah, let me take Dellavedova.
Okay. And I'll take the guy you've never heard of and you're about to pronounce his name, Festus Ezeli.
Okay, then we had... Let's forget it. That's enough players. Okay, so let's look at our roster. Okay, announce your team. What is your team?
My team is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, and Festus Ezeli. You notice a trend?
What?
They're all Warriors.
I have LeBron, Kyrie, Mozgov, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Dellavedova. The difference is I took Draymond Green, so you don't have a guy to guard LeBron.
So your team is all Cavs and Draymond Green. My team is all Warriors. Cool draft.
But the difference is who's guarding LeBron? Because that's Atlanta's problem. Once you don't, that's why San Antonio was able to neutralize him. And that's, by the way, when Dallas won in the finals, they neutralized LeBron at the basket. You do have two bigs, but he's going to get a lot of good. Because to me, the whole key to that draft, I knew who you were going to take, and you knew who I was.
I was baiting you into taking Cavs the entire time, and it worked outside of one pick.
I know. And I knew Draymond Green was the key because you can't take him in the first 3 picks.
Honestly, if we're doing that draft for real, I would have taken him there.
I know you would have.
Ahead of Klay Thompson. But he's more important in the series than Klay Thompson.
He is. Draymond Green will be a very important player in the series. Klay Thompson will not be as important in this series. So the truth is, I think the Cavs, we basically have our teams except one power forward. Vince, who would you like in that series? Uncle Colin does have LeBron.
I'm calling for a Warrior sweep.
Yeah, he likes a Warrior. I don't see it as a sweep. I don't. I think Cleveland's pretty good. Right? I think Cleveland's pretty good. If he could get back to 500 with LeBron if he wins the finals. Or he's gonna drop a couple games below 500, which I don't. You can't judge a legacy. Did anybody judge Larry King's legacy when he had 12 years left on the air? Yeah, but I mean, Jerry West went 0 for his first 11 in the finals, and he was known as Mr. Clutch. I mean, I think post-Jordan, everybody judges finals. A lot of guys have lost a lot of finals. Everybody wants to judge the legacy of LeBron. He's got 9 years of NBA basketball left. So, there you go. That's good stuff. Jeremy Schaap on the FIFA mess, Tom Penn, Jared Dudley, and Floyd Reese stopped by the show today. 2 for the road.
Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the road. 2 for the road in the herd.
Pope Francis revealed he has not watched television for 25 years. Not even the soccer matches played by his beloved Buenos Aires football team. He said he last switched on a TV in 1990. He said that in an interview Monday with an Argentinian newspaper. Wow, I don't watch as much as I used to, but that's quite a gap there.
What's the longest you've ever gone without watching TV?
If I go on vacation, I'll go like 4 or 5 days. I won't watch. But I got to stay in tune with sports. So I would say I'd go 3 days where I just tune it out. 3 or 4 days, don't watch much at all.
The longest you've ever gone without watching TV is 3 days?
Well, I'm a sportscaster. I can't just tune off. I remember one time I stopped watching on vacation, and Chad Pennington got moved to the Dolphins, and I came back, and somebody said it on the air, and I'm like, I should probably have known that. The starting quarterback for an NFL team. My prestige and self-esteem relies on the television. And how about this? The Maryland Motor Vehicle Administration has crossed parallel parking off the driver's test.
It was just too hard for the millennials. Mama, I can't parallel park the electric car. Mommy!
Yeah.
Mommy, the Hyundai doesn't parallel park like the 86 LeSabre.
Yeah, Colin, not everyone can have a car like yours where it parks for you.
I know.
With all those cameras.
I don't know. I think parallel parking's fairly vital in society. Do they cross off these stopping at stop signs and don't run over tourists on the road, too? How do you take out parallel parking? It's the only hard thing in the test. The rest of it's like don't speed in a school zone. That's ridiculous. I mean, seriously, the only hard thing is like, can I pass the parallel parking?
We got rid of it. It was just too hard for our citizens. I got an electric car. The cord gets all tangled up on that parallel parking.
Jeez, I'm getting soft as a country. Take out the parallel parking. Good God, my 9-year-old son could pass it now. Stop at that sign, go on that green. It's ridiculous. Country's going to crap.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.